Hello students. So now in this video let us discuss about the remaining very short answer questions of laws of motion up to kinetic theory. First, chapter 5, laws of motion. What is inertia? What gives measure of inertia? Inertia is the property of body by which it resists any change in its state. Means if any body is in rest position, it will try to make the body to be in rest position. If any body is moving with uniform velocity, it will try to make that body to just continue in that uniform motion only. And the measure of inertia is mass. Next question, according to Newton's third law, every force is accompanied by an equal and opposite force. How can a movement ever take place? So here, because of action and reaction are taking place on different bodies. What question he asked? He said that according to Newton's third law, every force is accompanied by equal and opposite force. How can a movement ever take place? So movement take place both due to action and reaction. Okay. When a bullet is fired from gun gives a kick in backward direction. Explain. This is due to law of conservation of momentum. When bullet is fired from gun gives the kick in backward direction to balance momentum developed by the bullet. Next, why does heavy rifle not recoil as strongly as light rifle using same cartridges? Actually, the formula for recoil of gun is V equal to mu by capital M. Now, here V is proportional to 1 by M, that is inversely proportional to mass of a rifle. Mass. Now, rifle mass will be more. So, inversely proportional, no? Velocity will be less. So, only recoil will be less. Next, if a bomb at rest explodes into two pieces, the pieces must travel in opposite directions. Why? This is also due to law of conservation of momentum itself only. So, now here, if bomb at rest explodes into two pieces, the pieces must travel in opposite directions as two pieces must have equal and opposite momentum. For that, they have to travel in opposite direction. Define force. What are the basic forces in nature? The force is the property which changes or tends to change the state of rest or motion. If body is in rest, it makes the body to come into the motion. If body is moving with uniform motion, it will try to change it into non-uniform motion. And basic forces are gravitational force, electromagnetic force, strong nuclear force and weak nuclear force. Can coefficient of friction greater than 1? Yes. So for such bodies which are polished heavily, adhesive forces between the molecules increases. In such cases, coefficient of friction will be greater than 1. Next, why does car with flattened tires stop sooner than the one with inflattened tires? Actually, flattened tires will get more deformed. Deformed means the change in size, shape of the body. It undergoes deformation. So, rolling friction increases. So, car with flattened tire comes to rest sooner than inflattened tire due to greater rolling friction. Why rolling friction is more? Because it gets more deformed. A horse has to pull harder during the start of motion than later. Explain. This is due to static friction. Actually, in beginning the horse has to face more static friction. And once it overcomes the static friction, it converts into kinetic friction. Okay. So, horse has to exert more force to overcome that static friction. What happens to the coefficient of friction if weight of the body is doubled? Actually, coefficient of friction is independent of weight, so it remains constant. Next chapter, chapter 7, system of particles and rotational motion. Is it necessary that mass should be present at the center of mass of the system? No need. A ring, it does not have any mass at the center. Okay, the ring has center of mass at its center, but it does not have any mass at the center. What is the difference in positions of a girl carrying bag in one hand and another girl carrying bag in each hand? If we carry heavy loaded bag only in one hand, in which hand we are carrying the bag? For example, if we are carrying the bag with left hand, then our center of mass shifts to the right hand. So the girl has to lean in order to bring the center of mass between the two hands. That is, now when girl carries bag in both hands, center of mass will not shift. So girl does not need to bend any side. Okay. Two rigid bodies have same moment of inertia about their fixed axes of symmetry, of two which body will have greater kinetic energy. Kinetic energy formula half I omega square. That is kinetic energy proportional to omega square. That is, body having greater angular velocity will have greater kinetic energy. Why spokes are provided in bicycle? Spokes of cycle wheel increases the moment of inertia. So if moment of inertia is more, the opposition to any change in uniform rotational motion will be more. So bicycle goes in a uniform motion. Okay. Actually, if moment of inertia is not more, then it will not go in uniform motion. In order to maintain the uniform motion, moment of inertia must be more, and it is provided by the spokes of the cycle. Now, why do we prefer spanner of longer arm as compared to spanner of shorter arm? Actually, longer arm spanners have more torque. When torque is more, easily we can rotate the spanner compared to the short arm spanners. Now next, by spinning eggs on tabletop, how will you distinguish a hard boiled egg from raw egg? A boiled egg is nearly a rigid body and has low moment of inertia. Hence, for same torque, boiled egg spins fast. Why should helicopter necessarily have two propellers? If only one propeller is present, then automatically by itself helicopter rotates in opposite direction. So in order to avoid this only, it requires two propellers, and it follows law of conservation of angular momentum. Next, is there if the polar ice caps of earth were to melt, what would be the effect of length of day? Actually, earth rotates about polar axis. When polar ice cap melts, the water or mass is concentrated near axis spreads. It is melting means converting into water itself only, no? So it spreads. So moment of inertia increases. With increase of I, that is moment of inertia, time period increases. So length of day increases. Why is it easier to balance a bicycle in motion? This is due to principle of conservation of angular momentum. Next, chapter 11, mechanical properties of fluids. Define average pressure, mention its units, dimensional formula, is it scalar or vector? Average pressure is defined as force per unit area. Okay. Units are Newton per meter square, or simply write Pascal. Dimensional formula ml minus 1 t minus 2, and it is a scalar quantity. Define viscosity, units and dimensions. Viscosity means that property which is opposing the relative motion between the layers of liquid, that we call viscosity. Units are CGS, poise, SI, Newton, meter minus 2 seconds. Dimensional formula ml minus 1 t minus 1. What is the principle behind carburetor of automobile? Bernoulli's principle. Actually, the working comes to be carburetor contains a nozzle, and through that nozzle only air flows with a very high speed. Now at the in between it contains venturimeter. How the venturimeter in between the neck will be very narrow. So when air flows through high speed, the pressure is then lowered at the narrow neck. And petrol, when pressure is lowered, the petrol is sucked into the chamber. Now it provides the correct mixture of air to fuel in order to provide the necessary combustion and the vehicles run. What is the Magnus effect? Combustion means nothing but creating the fuel. What is Magnus effect? The dynamic lift arises due to spinning of moving ball. So actually how the dynamic lift arises? So there will be differences in velocities of air when the ball is spinning and moving. There will be difference in velocities. So on upper side velocity will be more, pressure will be less. On the lower side of the ball, velocity will be less, pressure will be more. That is, velocity differences creates pressure differences, and this creates the dynamic lift, and that we call it as Magnus effect. Why drops and bubbles are spherical? This is due to surface tension. What is surface tension? The perpendicular force acting on the surface of water. So this force makes the volume, as the water drop comes from certain height towards the ground. So these surface tension forces acts on the drop and make that drop's area minimum. And all minimum area surfaces will have spherical shape. Okay. Now give the expression for excess pressure in liquid drop, 2S by R. Next, S is the surface tension. Sorry, here I wrote T, correct it as S. And R is the radius of liquid drop. Next, expression for excess pressure in air bubble. This is also 2S by R, S surface tension, R radius of bubble. And excess pressure of soap bubble, that is 4S by R. Right? Now what are waterproofing water wetting agents? And what do they do? Waterproofing agents means when they are immersed in the water, they increase the angle of contact between the water and the cloth. So example, raincoat. In a rainy season we wear raincoat. Water will not enter into that fabric because the angle of contact is more. Okay. Now next, water wetting agents means soap detergents. So angle of contact will be very less. So water penetrates into the fabric, and the soap which we use also penetrates into the fabric and cleans the fabric. Now next, what is actually angle of contact? So now angle of contact means, now this is all water. A solid is immersed. Now let us draw a tangent to the liquid surface and this solid immersed in the liquid. Now the angle between this tangent drawn and the surface of this solid, we call it as angle of contact. If this is more, we call waterproof agent. If this angle of contact is less, we call water wetting agents. Right? Now next, mention any two examples of Bernoulli's theorem. Blowing of papers, roofs. Now when we switch the fan, you will see all papers will blow off. Why? Means due to fan, the velocity of air on papers will be more and below papers will be less. So pressure on the papers will be less, below will be more. Due to that pressure, they blow off, which creates the dynamic lift. Next, during heavy winds, due to winds, the velocity over the air velocity over the roofs will be more and below roof will be less. Below roof velocity is less, so pressure will be more, and with that more pressure, the roofs blow off, which causes, now this happens due to dynamic lift itself only. When water flows through a pipe, which of the layers move fastest and slowest? The middle central layer move faster, and the outer layers, which is in contact with the walls of pipe, moves slower. Now next, terminal velocity is more if surface area of body is more. Give the reason in support of your answer. So terminal velocity is directly proportional to the square r square, right? So as surface area increases, r square also increases. Then terminal velocity also increases. So terminal velocity is more if surface area of body is more. Now next, let us move for chapter 12. Chapter 12, thermal properties. Alright. So the first question, distinguish between the heat and temperature. So heat is form of energy. It is a cause on the body. It is determined by calorimeter. Units are joules and calories. Temperature is degree of hotness or coldness of body. It is effect on body. It is measured by thermometer. Units are Celsius or Kelvin or degree Fahrenheit. Next, what are lower and upper fixing points in Celsius and Fahrenheit scales? Celsius scale, lower fixing point 0 degrees, we call it as ice point. Upper fixed point 100 degrees, we call it as steam point. In Fahrenheit scale, lower fixed point 32 degree Fahrenheit, upper fixed point 212 degree Fahrenheit. Next, do the values of coefficients of expansion differ when temperature are measured on centigrade scale or on Fahrenheit scale? Yes. Why means the formula is alpha by degree Celsius is equal to 9 by 5 alpha per degree Celsius. So coefficient of expansion depends on the scale of temperature. Because of this, can a substance contract on heating? If so, give an example. Yes. And example itself is rubber. Next, why gaps are left between rails on railway track? Because the length of rails increases in the summer. For that. Why do liquids have no linear and aerial expansion? Because liquid, it does not have particular length, area, shape. It occupies the shape of the container in which we take it. Solely it does not have any linear or aerial expansion. What is latent heat of fusion? So at without rise in temperature, if solid converts into liquid, that we call is as latent heat of fusion. The amount of heat per unit mass required to change the substance from solid to liquid at same temperature and pressure. Similarly, if we want to change the liquid to vapor, the amount of heat per unit mass required to change a substance from liquid to vapor at same temperature and pressure, we call latent heat of vaporization. Next, why utensils are coated black? Why the bottom of utensils are made of copper? They are coated black because they are good observers of heat. Copper is good conductor. State Wien's displacement law. Wavelength corresponding to maximum energy emitted by the black body is inversely proportional to its absolute temperature. Why ventilators are provided? Why means for hot air to escape, for fresh air to come inside the room by the convection. Does a body radiate heat at 0 Kelvin? No. Whether it radiates heat at 0 degree Celsius? Yes. Different modes of transmissions of heat. Sorry, I wrote it as heart, spelling mistake, heat. Which of these require medium? Conduction, convection, radiation. And in these three, conduction and convection requires medium. Next, define coefficient of thermal conductivity and temperature gradient. The quantity of heat energy flowing per second between opposite faces of cube of unit side which maintain the unit temperature gradient we call coefficient of thermal conductivity. The change of temperature per unit length, temperature divided by length, we call it as temperature of gradient. Define emissivity. The ratio of emissive power of the body to the emissive power of perfectly black body we call emissivity. Next, what is greenhouse effect? Explain global warming. The earth receives the light from the sunlight, heat from the sunlight, and makes the surface of earth to remain warm. This we call it as greenhouse. Okay, this we call it as greenhouse effect. Okay. Now, greenhouse gases CO2, CH4, etc. These absorbs the heat and keep the earth warm. Now, next, global warming means now this CO2 content increases more. When it increases the heat in the atmosphere, the temperature increases throughout the world. that we call global warming. Now define absorptive power of the body. What is the absorptive power of perfectly black body? The ratio of amount of radiant energy absorbed to the amount of radiant energy incident in a wavelength range we call absorptive power, and for black body it is 1. State Newton's law of cooling. So Newton's law of cooling, the rate of loss of heat is directly proportional to the difference in temperature. Okay, directly proportional to the difference in temperature. Here rate of loss, no, here you have to place minus. Okay, minus dq by dt is proportional to Tb minus Ts. Now next state the conditions for Newton's law of cooling is applicable. First condition, heat lost by body is due to convection, loss of heat is negligible by conduction, hot body is cooled by forced convection, temperature of every part of the body is same. Next, the roofs of buildings are often painted white. Why? White is a good reflector of heat. It reflects the heat and tries to keep the room cool during the summer. Next, the last chapter, 14th chapter, kinetic theory. Define mean free path. Mean free path means the average distance covered by the molecules between two successive collisions. How does kinetic theory justify Avogadro's hypothesis? Actually, formula P1 V1 by N1 T1 equal to P2 V2 by N2 T2. When P, V, T are constant, automatically from this formula we are understanding N1 equal to N2. That is, Avogadro's number will be constant. Next, when does the real gas behave as ideal gas? At low temperatures and high pressures. State Boyle's and Charles' law. Boyle's law, at constant temperature, pressure is inversely proportional to volume. Charles' law, at constant pressure, volume is directly proportional to the absolute temperature. State Dalton's law. P equal to P1 plus P2 plus so on. That is, the total pressure of mixture of ideal gases is equal to sum of partial pressures. Now, pressure of ideal gas container is independent of shape of container. Explain. Actually, the formula is 1 by 3 n m v bar square. Here n is number of moles, m is mass, v bar is average velocity. We are not having any term of area. So, we can say it is independent of area or shape of container. What is degrees of freedom? Degrees of freedom means that particular which explains how many independent motions will the particle undergo. Monoatomic molecule has 3, diatomic 5, triatomic 6 degrees of freedom. What is the expression between pressure and kinetic energy? Pressure is equal to 2 by 3 kinetic energy. Now here problem is there, the absolute temperature of gas is increased 3 times. What will be the increase in RMS velocity of gas? So T2 equal to 3 T1 he have gave. C is proportional to root T. From the formula C equal to under root 3 RT by M. So substituting C1 by C2 under root T1 by 3 T1. C2 we will get root 3 C1. Increase in RMS velocity C2 minus C1, that is equal to root 3 C1 minus C1, that is equal to root 3 value 1.732. C1 minus C1 we get answer as 0.732 C1. Next problem, what is the ratio of RMS speed of oxygen and hydrogen molecules at the same temperature? So C is proportional to 1 by root M from that formula under root 3 RT by M. So C oxygen by C hydrogen equal to inversely proportional, no, under root molecular weight of hydrogen by molecular weight of oxygen. What is molecular weight of hydrogen? 2. Molecular weight of oxygen 32. Now we will get 1 by 4, that is 1:4. The molecules of gas has speed 1, 2, 3 and 4 km per second. Find the RMS speed. Formula is C equal to under root C1 square plus C2 square plus C3 square plus C4 square by how many he gave? 4. So divided by 4. So 1 square plus 2 square plus 3 square plus 4 square by 4 under root. You will get root 30 by 2, that is equal to 2.74 km per second. So by this we completed the LAQs as well as VSAQs of this your first year. So if you are perfect with LAQs and VSAQs, automatically you will pass. Now if you want to score the good marks, or 60 by 60, you need to practice short answers. So my next videos will be on short answers. So as these are VSAQs, just I went on reading them. If you need any explanation or if you didn't understand any chapters VSAQs, you can ask me. If you like my video, share it, subscribe it. Yours, Reshma Physics.